Hello, my name is Devin Jones, and welcome to this edition of the Sparx Tribune Report. You can find me on Twitter at the user handle provided in the description box below, and the Sparx Tribune's website, the Sparx Tribune. Sparx is spelled with an X, thesparxtribune.weebly.com, and I'll include a link in the description box below where you can find that website as well. Today, in our 10-part series called The Bill of Rights, we're going to be talking about the Fifth Amendment. And we have it pulled up here on the phone. But in the meantime, cheers.
Cheers. Here you go.
So I'm going to read the text first of the Fifth Amendment before we discuss it. The Fifth Amendment states, and I quote, No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, the vast majority of this Fifth Amendment is pretty much cut and dry. There's no.
I plead.
He pleads the Fifth. There's no.
I always wanted to say that.
Shall we say? An arisement of a problem. There's no controversy. There's no right-left discourse, shall we say?
Doesn't seem to be.
Right. Yeah, but mostly there's.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead and say what you wanted to say.
No, that's where something like the Miranda rights came from.
The Miranda rights?
Yeah, we're not allowed to. Not allowed to. I shouldn't say that. You do not have to incriminate yourself.
Right. That's the second part
That's
of
the
this.
basis of this. Yes.
The most commonly.
This is the basis of that.
Yeah, the most commonly used portion of the Fifth Amendment, where we get the "I plead the Fifth," and I'll get to the various applications of "I plead the Fifth" in just a moment. But there's one part of before we get to the whole not incriminating yourself on the basis of your own words. Before you get to that, there is one part, the first part of the Fifth Amendment, that I wanted to suggest possibly refers to the riots on January the 6th.
Go ahead.
And that is where, because it says, no person, when we're talking specifically about treason, like insurrection, like what happened on January the 6th at the Capitol.
That was treason.
Those are high crimes,
yeah.
By the way. They attempted to overthrow a democratically elected president and attempted to subvert the result of the election. So,
except
this part,
I'm going to play devil advocate. I'm going to play Donald's advocate.
Oh, he's going to play the Donald's advocate.
He did incite them, and if the president did incite them,
now I'm
curious as to where that's going to run.
You are or are not indicting the former president in this?
Because, I'm certainly indicting him. I think he was a.
Because that's where I might differ in this, with all due respect.
Mm-hmm.
Because he, in his particular speech to his supporters, he said that what he wanted was a peaceful protest, and the action that he called for was not violence, but rather primarying. The action that he called for was primarying Republican candidates that did not agree with him. So he did not specifically call for uprising. You could indict Rudy Giuliani because Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's lawyer, did specifically say this is trial by combat.
Combat, yeah.
So you could indict Donald Trump's lawyer because Donald Trump's lawyer did by all means state that we're talking about violence.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it be the left or the right, I do not advocate for violence at the behest of political gain. Under no cause. I still happen to believe in the electoral process and the democratic process. And so whether it be right, so whether it be left or right, I say no. There's a problem if you're advocating violence to accommodate, your political goals. As a matter of fact, Lenin, one of the Russian revolutionaries,
not John Lennon.
No, not the great John Lennon. No, we're speaking of Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin actually spoke to this very same topic, and Vladimir Lenin actually
not his real name,
actually. Well, hold on, I would like to hear about that. I did not know that was not his real name, but let me just finish what I was saying. Because he actually drew a distinction between an actual uprising, an actual revolution of the people, and a small group of people that just wanted to be violent at their own behest and for their own political purposes. And he drew a distinction as a revolutionary, the revolutionary that he was. But Vladimir Lenin actually drew that distinction. Look this up. I love to challenge people to look things up. But anyhow,
you got my phone, so I can't.
No, I mostly wanted to say, I mostly wanted to say that because Vladimir Lenin was not a supporter of individual people going and committing violence or crime, and he wasn't. He wasn't revolutionary leftist.
I'm talking Stalin.
Well, Vladimir Lenin was a Russian.
Yes.
And an advocate of Russian revolution.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But
we're talking. Let's get back to the Fifth Amendment. Let's.
Well, it does somewhat pertain to the Fifth
fun
Amendment.
little conversation afterwards.
But mostly what I wanted to say before I move on from the first part of that is that it does incriminate those who took part in the January the 6th uprising because, and I'm going to quote the first part of this again, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, treason, unless a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war, public danger, like they caused or definitely presented a danger to our members of Congress and to each other. But anyhow,
it was a full insurrection.
Right, they presented a danger amongst themselves. They presented a danger to members of Congress. And amidst that were attempting treason.
And filmed themselves.
Oh, right, no doubt.
Filmed themselves actually commit treason.
Great, we just lost it.
To this?
You got like a really finicky touch screen over here. But
I'll find it.
But anyhow, what they did does indict them under the first portion of the Fifth Amendment. Because what they did was treason. They did attempt to violently take over the Capitol. They did present a danger to other people present and to members of Congress. And so that high crime that they attempted, treason, essentially, they can be indicted and do not fall under the exceptions presented under the Fifth Amendment. And not Trump himself, because Donald Trump did not advocate for violence. He actually specifically mentioned a peaceful and patriotic protest. So you can't indict Donald Trump under this Fifth Amendment because Donald Trump specifically mentioned peaceful and patriotic. You could indict Rudy Giuliani under this because he said this was trial by combat right before the protest ensued. So I say jail Rudy Giuliani. I say Rudy Giuliani needs to go to jail. That's my opinion.
I have no problem with that.
That Trump himself is not indictable under this particular offense, but that Rudy Giuliani needs to go straight to jail.
This particular offense.
Right, this particular offense, because there's other multiple offenses that we could jail Donald Trump for, and that he might actually likely face. Because in the New York, the state of New York, might indict Donald Trump, and all of those are legitimate, and I would be 100% for those specifically. New York, Florida has indictments on Donald Trump.
Well,
You know, and
we
all of
certainly
those.
didn't want it there.
So I don't want my audience to think that I'm just an apologist for Donald Trump, because I'm not, but I do want things to be done fairly and in the right way and in a manner, shall I quote the Constitution, in a manner prescribed by law. Not just partisan hackery. But
I'm trying to get us back on track, though.
yeah, find the text of the Fifth Amendment so that we can
keep
move on to the second
Every
half.
time I take this and I get the fifth element.
But at any rate, so Donald Trump can easily be indicted on multiple charges, mostly at the state level. He's got state charges in the state of New York. He could be indicted. There are charges in the state of Florida.
State.
He can be indicted in the state of Florida. He can also be indicted in the states of Georgia and Alabama. Mostly in the state of Georgia, when it comes to the aforementioned, we like, to those of you who are following closely, keeping track, attempting to change the results of the electoral results in Georgia, and asking the governor there to find what it was, 11,000 some votes, whatever the number was,
which would not have made a difference.
It would have. That's what he was asking, was the sum of the total of what he needed to win that state. He was asking the governor of that state to come up with or to find those votes. That's wrong. That's wrong. Donald Trump committed a crime. Donald Trump committed a crime.
I doubt seriously he has never committed a crime in his life before that.
Oh, he's squeaky fucking clean. He's squeaky clean.
He's Bill Clinton of the billionaires.
Well, he certainly asked the governor of the state of Alabama to give him head. Squeaky clean my ass on both of their parts.
I seriously doubt that. By the way, I seriously doubt that he's never done that before.
At any rate, so the first part of that's mostly what I wanted to note there, was that the rioters, have you brought up the text of the Fifth Amendment?
Yeah, here you go.
Okay. But that's mostly what I wanted to bring up with regard to the first part of the Fifth Amendment, is that it does speak to the riots that happened on January the 6th, and that this Fifth Amendment does cover that, and that they could be held liable for high crimes and misdemeanors because of their attempted treason, because of the danger that this Fifth Amendment does mention, that's the exception to the rule, that if you present. Actually, you were a little bit right about the camera positioning, because you. No, that's all right. Go ahead. Anyhow,
that's okay.
Anyhow, but with regard to that, I just wanted to say, you can hold these people accountable. Not Trump. You can hold Giuliani accountable, but the individual members of this riot that took place, you can't hold them accountable under the Fifth Amendment, because they did present a danger to everyone present there, including to members of Congress. But, continuing on.
I do, like I said, I consider the people who did that treasonous. I have worked with the actual army. I've worked with the Pentagon. I have worked with people who are patriotic, real patriots. And I do not believe that any of those are real patriots. I believe they're bigots, assholes, and people who should be held accountable, but will never be. Pause.
But I'm going to start from the beginning here. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. This, by the way, before I move on, I do need to just, as someone commenting on this just responsibly, that should be duly noted, because this is a major rule in court. It's called double jeopardy.
Well, I want to make one comment too before you get there.
What's that?
Depending on how you look at it, we are in a time of war. We have 3 wars going on. That's all all I gotta say.
7, depending on how you look at it. Thank you, Barack Obama.
Yeah. George W.
Well, George W. started the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
He started the first 2, including the Iraq War, and then Barack Obama took us from 2 wars to 7.
So any court.
This is not a partisan issue. Both parties are parties of war.
Oh yeah. In court, the claim could be made that we're in a time of war.
Not here.
Not here.
Our Constitution applies to our rights and our liberties here in the United States.
It says that.
And no, when it says in a time of war. So, but that would mean that any time that we're engaged in any war overseas, that we can subvert our rights here in the United States, and that's a dangerous precedent. That's a dangerous thing to say.
And I'm not saying it's wrong. Right. I'm saying it's totally wrong.
But we here in the United States is not in a time of war.
You get the right lawyers or Supreme Court justices, which we have at the moment.
Dangerous.
Just saying.
Anyhow.
We've been in a time of war since 2001.
Exactly. So based on that logic, we could have been infringing our rights for the last couple of decades, damn it.
And I think they have.
Well, they have, but not in the name of that.
So far.
Like, that's a dangerous precedent to take, because then you could say any time that we're engaged in anything that we call war, then we're automatically allowed to infringe the rights of the United States citizens here.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Third Amendment that we discussed last time. The excuse, the nuance there, the exception to that rule was that soldiers are not allowed to be quartered into homes in time of peace. So if you want to make that same argument and say, oh, well, we're in a time of war overseas, therefore you should be forced to house soldiers in your homes, this is a dangerous precedent to set.
Of course it is. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that someday...
I'm saying it doesn't apply because...
Sometime it's going to come up.
And I'm saying it doesn't apply here because we here in the United States are not in a time of war. This United States is not in a time of war. We're perpetuating war, and I'm not advocating for war, but we are perpetuating war the world over.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that we're allowed to infringe the rights of our citizens here in the United States just because we want to call it a time of war in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But it is a little...
That would be dangerous.
Vague.
That would be that would be dangerous if we just, if we tried to apply this rhetoric to here in the United States on the basis of us being, in a war situation overseas, that would be extremely dangerous.
Oh, yeah. It's been dangerous for 20-some years.
But anyhow...
We're in a paranoid society. But go ahead.
I'm starting from the beginning again. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. This is the most common portion of the Fifth Amendment. When we say, I plead the Fifth,
well, public danger is also a different story.
This is the most commonly used portion of the Fifth Amendment. When we're talking about, I plead the Fifth, to be a witness against yourself. In other words, your words cannot be forced to be used against you. This is why, from the beginning of the narrative, this is why when a police officer arrests you, they say that it is your right to remain silent. They're not demanding that you remain silent or telling you to shut up. They're saying, no, you have a right. This is your right to remain silent. Because anything that you say to that police officer could be used against you, as they say so when they arrest you, can be used against you in a court of law.
Yeah.
So you have a right to not say anything to the police officer. Likewise, when that case goes to court, you have a right to not answer any questions at all. To lawyers, to prosecutors, you even have the right, by the way, you have the right to not answer even the judge's questions. under this same amendment, and that's for a reason.
Understood.
Because you could accidentally either A, indict yourself with your own words, or B, accidentally say something that could be construed by prosecutors in a way that could make it look like you were guilty. There's a reason we have the Fifth Amendment. It's intended to protect you. And so in a court of law, not just when a police officer says you have the right to remain silent, well, be it you do, you also have the right to remain silent in a court of law. You have the right to not answer questions by prosecuting attorneys, by the judge. You have the right to remain silent and to simply respond with, and by the way, a proper answer if you desire not to answer the question, in whether it be to the police officers or in a court of law, a proper response in lieu of an answer would be, I'll discuss, not just, you can say that. You can just say, I plead the Fifth. You can. You're right. But you can also respond with, I would like to discuss that with my attorney.
Yeah.
You can also say that in response as well, in lieu of an answer that might either indict you directly or seem to indict you in a way that someone could twist it to make it sound like you're guilty, even if you're not. Again, this is why we have the Fifth Amendment. So you can respond to that question, whether it be to the police officer or to in court. You can say, I prefer to discuss that with my attorney.
I will tell you a funny story. I think I've told
Go
you
ahead.
this before. So many years ago, riding around at 2 o'clock in the morning after going to a drinking party. We're probably talking about 1985. So I think the statute of limitations is
statute of limitations.
I said limitations. That's drinking.
But we are drinking now.
Oh shoot! Well, I'm not driving either.
No, we're doing a drunk video. It's okay.
Good idea.
Can I read the last part of this?
Go ahead.
The last part of this, and the last thing that really needs to be touched on, this last clause, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So they cannot take your private property without, and this is a little bit ambiguous, without just compensation. And there's debate as to what is just compensation. Here, actually, you can have this since we're done reading the.
No,
well, keep it open because we might want to read the whole thing one more time for right here. No, might want to read the whole.
That's a very good point too, based on the fact that
what is just compensation?
Well, James City County has claimed a number of properties under what is the term?
Oh, the public good?
No. Don't take that one.
But there's a story.
They have taken over a number of private property lands just to build roads, and they have simply basically taken over the bloody roads.
But there's also a story that comes to mind with me, and that's somebody named Boyd Gwynn. Boyd Gwynn is unfortunately deceased, but he was a treasurer in the town where he served, duly elected by a wide margin, and he was not only a treasury secretary, but also worked with zoning. He was also a realtor. He had a lot of connections.
No, realtor.
And
there is no second syllable there. Realtor, not realtor.
Oh, okay.
Hey.
Anyhow.
I'm a language person.
Anyhow, this person was duly connected in his area. And as someone that was duly connected, was able to grab properties that were going to be foreclosed upon, that he was trying to buy up. He was also, involved in zoning ordinance, etc. But they tried to buy a piece of property from him that included a lake. This is in Matthews County, for those local here. But in Matthews, by the way, is adjacent to Gloucester County. Okay. Some people may not know that, so still. But anyhow. And he didn't want to sell it. He did not want to sell the lake. He had animals there that drank from the lake. He had a property surrounding it. He wanted this piece of property. They tried to buy it from him. He said no. Eventually, they said, "Your lake is
eminent domain."
Not they didn't. That's not what they used. Okay. They didn't use that one. They tried to say public good.
Oh.
Yes, they tried to use that one on him. And he basically said, "No, I'm not selling it to you." And this goes back to the wording of the Fifth Amendment again.
Mm-hmm.
But it basically, hold on. What did it say? Just compensation? Nor shall private property be taken for public use without, just compensation. Mm-hmm. Well, that was his protest. Was that the compensation they attempted to afford him was not just compensation.
Mm-hmm.
So he fought it in court. By the way, another sheriff came to his door.
Mm-hmm. Shocking.
Right. And attempted to take the property again. And I don't have all of the details of this story, so I can't continue to elaborate further. But basically, the battle ensued. The numbers, they tried to up the numbers a little bit and, give him more. And he said no. Eventually, he won this battle. Because he won the battle over what was considered just compensation. That it was not just compensation that they were offering him. And so he won the battle with the legislators that were attempting to take his property. So, anyhow, but the Fifth Amendment is more all-encompassing than just, I plead the Fifth. Okay, yes, you're right to not indict yourself with your own words is one small piece of it, but there's much more that encompasses this. I hope I've touched on a little bit of it. None of the Fifth Amendment is very controversial, so there's not too much controversy to discover or to discuss in the Fifth Amendment. But I hope I've touched on at least the basics here anyway.
Well, here's one for you, like I was going to say. I'll talk directly to the camera. Many, many years ago, probably 20, I was friends with a lady named Mrs. Evelyn Lee. She owned the Tioga Motel in Williamsburg, which is around here. And every year, the city of Williamsburg would try and take a piece of her property. And she would go out and sit in a chair in the middle of the street because she owned that property. And since she claimed it once a year, it never actually reverted to them. That's all.
Okay.
She was feisty. She was 98 years old.
Oh, by the way, I'm glad eminent domain was brought up.
Yeah.
Because there's one more thing I wanted to bring up, and that's, I can't believe we're still talking about the orange fuckface. But, no, because it happens to be relevant.
Well, now, who is that?
That's Donald Trump. Am I supposed to apologize for saying orange fuckface? No, you think I'm going to apologize?
I'm just bringing it up.
Fuck him.
I'm just bringing it up. Who is that?
Anyhow. But no, his border wall. Donald Trump's border wall. By the way, no. The border wall that would have ensued.
Oh, you mean the ones in Mexico to build?
Right. The one that was going to be paid for by Mexico, right? Yes, indeed. That worked out great. It worked out great. But anyhow,
it's right there.
It pierced
It's 5,000 miles long.
That wall pierced through private properties.
Of course.
Many private properties. And would have used this eminent domain that you're talking about to take property from many citizens, many of whom were conservative themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
that would have been funny.
That's priceless. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. But not only would have taken a whole bunch of land from a whole bunch of conservatives on the southern border, mm-hmm. but also would have pierced through protected lands.
Oh yeah, I know.
That involved land that was designated to protect certain endangered wildlife and including certain species of owls that were endangered on the southern border. So not only was he endangering his own people's property, the conservatives that voted for him, mm-hmm. not only was he endangering their property, but also endangering the wildlife that were on protected land that would have been being plowed through by this border wall. So he basically just endangered everybody involved. Native Americans, conservatives, wildlife, everybody endangered by this border wall.
Would have been funny, actually.
In a situation that would not have
acted. It would have been funny to see his eyes picked out by owls.
Right. But
no, I get the point.
I just wanted to bring that up as well, because that was a relevant point. I'm glad I thought of that at the last moment, because when we're talking about eminent domain, that's covered under the Fifth Amendment as well. Mm-hmm. And he endangered his own favorite supporters, as well as Native Americans, as well as wildlife that is protected, endangered species of owls. Just no one involved should be happy with this situation.
There is a term for a person like that. Have a beer.
But anyhow,
have we covered all the points?
I think we've covered all the points.
Okay.
But basically, again, my name is Devin Jones. You can find me on Twitter at the user handle provided in the description box below.
I'm Mike.
And on the website,
Mike Lambert.
On the website, you can find the Sparx Tribune at the Sparx Tribune. Sparx is spelled with an X, thesparxtribune.weebly.com. I'll include a link to that as well in the description box below. Before I conclude, I'm going to read the text. By the way, I think I should just read the entire thing all the way through one more time.
Left.
Yes.
I'm on the
Cheers
same.
One more time.
I'm halfway through the first beer, so
cheers one more time. I'm going to read this one more time. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
I plead the fifth.
And, again, my name is Devin Jones. You can find those aforementioned links in the description box below. And you have a nice evening.
Cheers.